Temple Mount walls, the west wall. Jesus said, not one stone would be left upon another. But people say, look at the Temple Mount, all those standing walls. That has to be Fort Antonia. So let's take a closer look at the western wall. The bottom section is what is called a retaining wall, and all the walls above the retaining wall were built after the destruction in 70 AD. The red line shows the ground level of the mount in 70 AD. Behind the retaining walls are huge vaults, built for the purpose of raising up the ground level, just like in the southeast corner of Solomon's porch. Not one stone in front of those vaults could be pushed over. Only the stones above the ground level, could be moved in any way. So as we look at this, we can say that everything below the red line cannot be pushed over, and everything on top of that red line was flattened, not one stone upon another.
Part 2. Solomon built the temple, the inner gate, woman's court, and the portico on the east called Solomon's porch. They then built the south wall. This was called the inner wall. 50 years after the destruction of Jerusalem, Emperor Hadrian began rebuilding the city. He then built the Temple of Jupiter on the Temple Mount, but first he needed a south wall. So he built the old inner wall, starting with a single row of Herod stones, creating the south wall we see today. According to Scripture, Nehemiah did not rebuild any of the temple walls. He only rebuilt the city walls, which means that the east wall of the mount we see today was part of the city wall that Nehemiah rebuilt, and not the east wall of Solomon's temple. The east gate on that city wall was not the east gate of the temple complex. Nehemiah called this gate the commander's or inspector's gate. There is no way this is the east gate of Solomon's temple, nor that of Herod's. The true east gate, Solomon's east gate, was the center of the east wall and entered directly into the woman's court. The ruins of the oldest gate, the eastern wall, still remain under the Muslim gate that we see today. Leon Rittmeyer, after finding two stones of what he believes to be part of the old Hezekiah wall, 700 BC, indicates that the Hasmonean wall joins to the Hezekiah wall. This means there would also be a joint where these two walls meet together. The Hezekiah wall that Nehemiah would have rebuilt extended from this supposed joint and ends just beyond the commander's gate. Even though I agree with Dr. Rittmeyer about Hezekiah's wall beginning with these two stones, I disagree that it was the wall of the temple. Remember, Nehemiah rebuilt the city wall only. He did not rebuild any of the outer walls of the temple. Leon Rittmeyer claims this old Hezekiah city wall was the east wall of the temple compound, and so places the location of the temple where the Dome of the Rock is now. Temple Mount Walls, Part 4, the North Wall. According to Charles Warren, who excavated the Temple Mount in the 1880s, there was no evidence of a north wall of the mount where we see it today. This fake north wall is defined by the Muslim school and the Pool of Israel. So where was the true north wall? Where the towers Mea and Hananel were located, and later that was made into Fort Barras by the Hasmonean, which was destroyed by Pompey, and then Herod built Fort Antonia in its place. So here is a diagram of the Western Tunnel. And in the red here, this is where all evidence of a Herodin west wall ended, at the north end of the Dome of the Rock platform, right where Nehemiah's wall was. Herod built a new wall, and then when Titus came, he destroyed that wall and Fort Antonia. Then he had all of Fort Antonia taken down, not one stone left upon another, so that he could get his army and all of his equipment up on the Temple Mount, where he could then destroy the temple. So this fulfills Jesus' prophecy in Matthew 24 that the Temple Mount would be laid even with the ground. And all that remained of the Temple Mount walls was, of course, the retaining wall, which couldn't be pushed over.